Hello, my name is Sam Coman, and as AALNC's Membership and Operations Senior Associate, I would like to welcome you to today's AALNC webinar, Ask an LNC. I have a few housekeeping notes that I would like to mention before we begin our presentation this afternoon. First of all, please note all attendee lines are currently muted in order to mitigate audio feedback. There are 4 panelists on today's webinar. To begin the presentation, our panelists will introduce themselves and explain their backgrounds and experience in the field of legal nurse consulting. Then we are going to continue by answering any questions that you might have for our presenters. If you would like to submit a question, please click on the GoToWebinar dialog box and send a message to our staff. Once your question is received, I will read your question out loud so that it may be addressed. Questions submitted in advance will also be addressed on this webinar. If you experience any technical difficulties during our presentation, please utilize that same chat box to send any questions or concerns my way. With those housekeeping remarks aside, I would like to begin today's presentation by turning over our session to our first panelist, AALNC President Kim Bellotti.
My name is Kim Bellotti, and like Sam mentioned, I am the current president of AALNC. I've sat on the board for several years. I practice independently and for the most part, do a lot of personal injury and toxic tort litigation. I got my start working with AALNC long ago and really enjoy the work. And I think that you'll enjoy the panel today. We've got 2 independent legal nurse consultants and 2 in-house legal nurse consultants. Debbie?
Hi, my name is Debbie Pritz, and I am the current immediate past president of AALNC. I've served on our board for 6 years, and prior to that I did serve on our forum committee. I have been a registered nurse for, I hate to say it, 37 years, close to 25 years clinical experience, and also for the past 17 years, have been a legal nurse consultant. I have worked full-time in-house plaintiff for the past, 15 years, and I'm happy to share some of my knowledge and experience with you all today. Erin?
Hi everyone, this is Erin Gallagher. I am a director at large at AALNC on the board of directors. This is my 2nd year as DAL. I have been an RN for 20 years, and I've been an LNC for 9 of those. Currently, 99% of my LNC work is subcontracting work. So I subcontract for several nurses, and I'm very happy doing that. And I also am still clinically active as a school nurse. And the type of LNC work I do is mostly on the criminal side of things. It's mostly criminal defense work, and then I also do some personal injury as well.
Hi, my name is Cindy Mag, and I've been a member of AALNC for a number of years, at least 13, I believe. I have been I've been a registered nurse for 37 years as well, and have been working as an LNC for 13 years. I am currently on the certification board for AALNC, and I work in-house defense, and I've been working in-house defense for 13 years as well. So we do almost all just med mal. We do not do tort here, so we do a lot of med mal, and we also are currently very involved in correctional health care, providing defense for the medical side. I think that's all I have.
This is Debbie. I just wanted to add one thing for myself so that everybody can keep an open mind about this as well. I do work full-time in-house for a law firm in Chicago, Wexler Wallace, but I live in West Virginia and I work remotely. so I am a full-time employee. So, you know, keep your options open. Don't be limited by geographic areas, because you can work for attorneys all over the country. And I've been with my firm for about 12 and a half years now, this firm. So don't feel like you have to stay limited to your geographical area when you go to market yourself.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone, for those introductions. Now we're going to move on to our question and answer section of the webinar. We're going to start off with some pre-submitted questions from registrants. But everyone keep in mind that if you come up with a question during the webinar presentation, you can submit that using the questions panel, and we will answer that as well. So the first question that we have submitted is, what is the best way to network with attorneys and get clients?
Hi, this is Kim. I'll kind of take a poke at that. This is a very, very common question that comes across, and I think it is one of the skills as a nurse that may be on the harder side to kind of get the foot in or step outside your comfort zone. But, you know, getting involved, mingling with attorneys at networking situations such as drinks or some kind of function where you volunteer. There was a golf tournament recently that was put on by attorneys. That would have been a great place for me to network. I didn't, but it would have been a great place. And, you know, just knowing people who know people and creating a relationship with people, not necessarily to tell them who you are, but teach them what you know, learn about them and then figure out what you can do for them.
This is Debbie. I'd also like to take a poke at that answer as well. I get a lot of legal nurses that contact me and ask me the same question, and I tell them one thing to do is when you join AALNC, even if you're not a member, you can still access our journal, but really if you are a member of AALNC and you use our journal as a marketing tool, if you have attorneys in your area that you know are practicing personal injury or med mal, or you know, our firm does product liability, our journal has some really excellent articles in there on different types of litigation. I would send an email to an attorney and, you know, take a PDF of the of an article of interest, send it to them and say, I noticed that you did this type of work. Our professional journal had this great article I thought might be of interest to you. And if you ever need anything or have a question, please feel free to contact me. Don't ask them for a job right up front. Always share something. When you're giving somebody something to help them and you're cultivating a relationship, you're not just asking for a job. You're not just asking for consulting work. You're actually willing to educate that attorney. That's going to be more valuable to you in the long run. So I would use our educational tools that we have, specifically our journal. This journal that just was released this week is on electronic health records, on audit trails, and any attorney needs to know about that. So I feel like that's a really good marketing tool for yourself to use.
Okay, great. Our next submitted question is, are there professional lawyer organizations that allow LNCs to attend lunch and learns?
I don't know. This is Debbie. I don't know that we really have. I've not specifically gone to a lunch and learn with an attorney association. I don't know if anybody that's been independent, Aaron, you or Kim, if you've actually done that. But again, if you can go, I mean, the only thing you can do is if you find out that there is a meeting, I would contact somebody and ask them if you can go. You know, do you have to pay to go? I don't know if they have a cost, but I certainly wouldn't turn that opportunity down if you're looking for a way to network.
This is Erin. I would recommend looking on like the state bar website of your state and look at their calendar and see what they have coming up. And you can always contact them and ask them, you know, if a non-attorney is able to come to one of those. Other things too are conferences. Sometimes you can go to a conference if you're not an attorney. So I did that one time. I went to a conference in Baltimore and it was for attorneys, but I went as an attendee and went to some of the sessions and then networked with some of the other attendees. So you could also think about doing that, but I would definitely check out the calendars on the websites.
The only thing that I'll add to that is I've lived in 3 states now and done consulting work. And in one of those states, I could join a particular organization if I joined underneath an attorney's name. In the state of Texas, I have not been able to get my foot in the door when it comes to the ABA or specific organizations. When I've called and contacted them, they've typically wanted me to provide lunch or market some way based upon their marketing tier. But I don't stop. One more thing I might add to that is don't ever forget about paralegals. I've had several paralegals contact me looking for a nurse, and they sometimes have known what they're looking for. Most of the time when they call me originally, they don't know what they're looking for. So before you mark them off, understand that they are very, very helpful for the attorney, and they're really a great way to get in the door. So local paralegal associations are good to market with also.
Risk management ones are as well. This is Cindy.
Okay, great. Our next submitted question is, what is your typical process for completing a record review?
This is Cindy. I'll start with that. But I'm coming from a defense side, so I'm working in-house, and by the time the records get to me, the suit has typically already been filed. So a plaintiff has already contacted an attorney, and we have started the process of an actual suit. I know some of the others who work independently often do it for just to see if there's merit to begin with. But by the time they get here, we have one. When we're looking through a record, we are first looking at the petition to see what the allegations are. And once we have determined what the allegations are against the medical provider, we start going through and looking to see what, if those allegations do show up in there, and B, then what was what happened that caused that particular thing to happen if it did. Were there other circumstances surrounding why something went the way it did? So that's our first process in terms of coming from a defense side. We are looking to see if those allegations are correct, or if they've misinterpreted something that is in there, or if they did indeed happen, what actually was the issue surrounding that. And I'll let the independent people do their part.
Well, I guess, you have to have 4 elements of negligence in order to file a suit, at least when it comes to medical malpractice. There has to be duty. There has to be breach of that duty. There has to be proximal cause or somehow a cause connection, and there have to be damages and injuries. So those 4 things have to be answered when you start reviewing a record for negligence, at least in the medical malpractice negligence arena. And different types of cases, whether they're product liability, personal injury, toxic tort, they all kind of have a little bit different starting point. And maybe Debbie could speak to the probability and Erin maybe to the forensic piece of that.
This is Debbie. I will, in our firm, I work with our paralegals and our legal assistants. A lot of times I take the initial phone call from clients and just do an interview with the client to see what their allegations are. And I put those notes together for the attorney, and if he's interested, then we send a document packet to our client to get a questionnaire filled out and get authorizations filled out. And then I work with the paralegals and the legal assistants to request the correct records. Once those records come in, they get bookmarked and or they get OCR'd. If anybody doesn't know what that is, it means optical character resolution, so that we can word search a record. It just helps me in my review process. And so when I get the records, then I start at the beginning and I just start going through the records and putting in a chronology from the different physicians, the different hospitals, what surgery they had. For our firm, we do the majority of our cases are product liability. We do a little bit of med mal, a little bit of personal injury, but the majority is product liability, where you're just looking to see what the drug or device is and what the injury was, and were those injuries related to that drug or device, or did they have other comorbidities that would have caused the issue? So I typically just put together a chronology, and it's in a Word document. And as I'm doing that, I bookmark my records, highlight them, and prepare that chronology and summary for our attorney.
This is Erin. Just to give you a little idea of the criminal side of things, my process is similar and different. When I get the records, since most of what I do on the criminal side is for criminal defense attorneys, they sometimes have very limited records that they get. And most of the time, like for an assault case or murder or attempted murder, something like that, the majority of the time they want to know if the injuries match what the story is, or if there's any way that the injuries could have happened, or if the injuries could have been caused by something else rather than what is being alleged. So I have very specific questions, usually from the attorneys, about that. So I am really honed in on those specific things. And then sometimes, like with like a DUI, I review the medical records with their history, medical history. So like if they have a seizure disorder, or if they have diabetes, or some other, or they're on medications, or some other reason that could cause them to drive erratically, things like that. But usually for me, I have specific questions from the attorneys that they want me to review the records for, and so I'm really honed in on that. It's not like a merit review or anything like that.
Okay, great. The next question that we have submitted is, what websites, search engines, or libraries do you use when completing research related to your case?
This is Cindy. I will answer some of that. When we're doing research on a particular case, we typically start with, I typically go to PubMed or to Google and start searching for issues relating to what I'm looking for. Let's say I'm looking for complications of iron overload. So I'm going to go to Google and maybe take a look at who writes about stuff like that, and then go to PubMed and see what kind of publications I can get on that, so that we've got something to go by. The other place that I will look is Google Scholar. Go to Google Scholar and put in a topic. and see what kind of information I get there. Sometimes you can get your articles there for free. We will also use, I'm in St. Louis, so we have Washington University Medical Library, and I will often take a trip down there and sit at their computers and search, particularly for texts related to a specific issue, and just see what I can find that way. That's pretty much how we start.
I also use the Health and Human Services, Department of Health and Human Services, the AHRQ website. That is a good place to get statistics or data that has been collected by the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality. So it's ahrq.gov. I use PubMed, and I think a really good, I think Cindy gave a good point there. If you have access to a medical library, I think that's a great place to go and research. Because a lot of publications, maybe articles, you do have to pay for. They're not freely available. If you are in a library, you can get access to those pretty quickly. I have access to a couple places that I've gone to do some research that way. So I'll do my Medline research, PubMed research, and find the articles I want. And if I can't get them available online, then I'll go to a medical library and download them.
Okay, great. Our next submitted question is it okay to go to an attorney's office without an appointment?
Ooh. That's interesting. This is Cindy. I will tell you that in our particular area, or I should say just in our law firm, because I'm not sure how the others would do, but I can say from our standpoint, if someone came to into our office without an appointment, they would not be seen.
This is Debbie. I've never done that either. I mean, of course, if you're going to drop off something to the staff and you just want to have an introduction and you're not intending to see the attorney, you know, you can stop by. But you're not going to get any kind of an audience with an attorney by just stopping in. I don't believe you would be successful that way.
I will add one thing you might want to consider before you do that is, you know, find out what law firms are actually using legal nurse consultants, who has a legal nurse consultant. And those are also good people if you're starting out to talk to, you know, and ask these same kinds of questions, but within your area.
Okay, great. Our next question is, are there any performance standards to determine if a newly hired LNC is working at an appropriate level?
For me, this is Debbie. I started at my firm. I was the first time they used a legal nurse. And so they didn't really, they knew what they wanted, but they didn't always know how best to utilize my services. Once I became employed in-house, I'm somebody that sort of can take the initiative and go with it. So I went above and beyond, and I still do that, to really use my skills and not just to doing an intake and maybe directing what records, but and reviewing those records, but really I've gotten now involved to the point where I have worked on trial teams. I work with our medical experts. I really am educating the attorneys on all aspects of the case, helping them to research the underlying medical issues. So I think you have to keep all of that in, in mind, that you always want to continually improve yourself. So even, is there a standard at the beginning? I don't know that there's a set of standards that say this is the way, the standard you need to meet, unless that is something that is set by the individual attorney or the firm that you're working with. So what their expectations are, I think that's what you're going to have to, live up to, but constantly be improving yourself and offering new skills.
Okay, great. Our next question is, do we need a license for each state that we may want to work in? I'm in Louisiana and we are not a compact state. Does this affect getting work outside of the state?
This is Erin. I can, pardon me, as an independent, I can answer that question. I am licensed to practice in Maryland, and none of my work is in Maryland. It is all elsewhere. I don't know. I worked for 1 year in-house, and of course I was in the state of Maryland, so that wasn't really an issue, but everything that I do is remote. So for me, anyway, that I don't believe that you do need to.
Okay, great. Our next question is, I was only aware of LNCs working with malpractice issues. What are the other areas of law that an LNC can be utilized as a resource in?
This is Kim. I think that throughout the call today, we've heard some different directions. We've got some people working independently on med mal cases. You've got, you might have an attorney that really what they focus on is personal injury. They might work on products liability, which would include, it could be a drug that they're looking at or an actual product. You can come at it from the risk management side. You've got, there's lots of different areas. I do a lot of toxic tort, and what that means is the personal injury lawyer who is working with patients that have asbestos exposure or diesel fuel exposure or benzene. And so there's, and as you've heard, Erin also does the forensic side. There's people that work for our federal government that are actually doing legal nurse consulting work. They're auditing records and actually making decisions about who's getting treatment and who's not based upon their past history. So I think that it's important to understand that the actual title of legal nurse consultant is extremely broad. Workers' compensation, there's just a vast number of people doing a lot of different things, which kind of plugs me in to say one thing: when you start networking with other legal nurse consultants, whether it be attending a different organization's meetings or coming to our forum every year, you will find just a pool of people that do a lot of different things and have a lot of neat jobs that they talk about and share. There's oftentimes new people that show up that work in jobs and they want to know how they become a legal nurse consultant. Well, they're actually already doing the work. So that's a broad question, and it's certainly interesting, and it just continues. I mean, I think all of us would say that we frequently meet people that do really neat jobs that we never knew were out there.
Okay, great. Our next question is, I am a clinical quality of care specialist. I request and review charts daily for possible quality of care issues. I feel it is beneficial experience in pursuing legal nurse consulting. What is the best way to market that experience to my advantage, since I have no experience reviewing charts as a legal nurse consultant, but have reviewed hundreds of charts as a quality nurse?
Cindy, I think you should take that since you do defense work.
Okay. Okay, that was a long question. Can you read it one more time? Aaron, or I'm sorry, Sam?
Yeah, sorry, just a second.
Okay.
I have to go back and find it.
Okay.
I delete them as we go. So.
It was somebody, Cindy, who is working as a quality care expert inside their facility, reviewing records for quality care. He wanted to know how best to transition to maybe independent consulting or working with attorneys. And I think that somebody with that experience, like, really could segue into defense work pretty easily.
Oh, very easily. If not into risk management, certainly into defense work on a regular basis. And actually, I mean, coming to, you know, how, depending on how long that you've been doing stuff like that, some of that will actually even transfer into hours needed for legal nurse consult for the certification as well. I mean, what you're doing in quality is what we're doing on the defense side. So that's almost like a straight line over.
Okay, great. Our next question is, I have heard paralegal and legal nurse consultant used interchangeably. Are they the same, or is there a difference?
Very different. If you asked me to do anything on the paralegal side, I would not have the first idea of what to do. So as an independent legal nurse consultant, I am solely looking at medical records. I'm reading them. I'm educating the attorney on them. I'm trying to find, you know, causation, all those things together, where, you know, I always tell my attorneys is, let me do this so you can do the law part of it. And then we kind of connect through it. I typically know nothing other than the statute of limitations is what I want to know about, because that affects me. And then any significant dates that are up front, whether it be depositions, trial, anything like that are important for me to know about. But other than that, I don't do any paralegal work.
This is Cindy. I think a lot of it depends on where your education comes from in terms of your legal nurse consulting. I know when I went through mine, which I did through Kaplan, it was a year-long program, and we actually learned a lot of what paralegals do. As in-house, the paralegal and I work together a lot, and I am able to do some of what she does, but they are distinctly different. There is a paralegal education, there is a legal nurse consulting education, though there are certainly legal nurse consultants who did not take any formal education at all. So it depends on what background you're coming from. If you've taken any type of courses, there are also nurses who work as paralegals, so they do both. So it can be very broad.
Okay, great. Our next question is, what is the best way to market myself?
Again, I think that goes back to the first question we had of creating relationships with people, whether it be through face-to-face, whether it be through LinkedIn, whether it be through sharing journal articles, you know, doing your homework and finding out who you're talking to and what you can add to them is really important. And I stress that it's the relationship piece that's going to help you climb through all that, not approaching attorneys and telling them all about what you do. They will eventually ask you that, but if you do your homework and know who you're talking to and find an interest in those people, those relationships oftentimes will pay back. I know oftentimes people ask if they should send out flyers or postcards or spend a lot of money on marketing material. That's something I've ever done, and I attend a lot of networking and marketing meetings, whether it be at our organization or whether it be out in the business world. And I don't do it because I've not heard a lot of success from that. And it's costly, and quite honestly, it's just better to be able to create a relationship with someone, because then they know who you are, they know what you look like, and quite honestly, they remember you because they need you. They get in a position where they really realize that you're probably an asset, and your name pops up, your face pops up, and they call you and you get work. And hopefully, you know, they're your client for a long time.
This is Erin. I agree with Kim. I think networking is absolutely huge. And I think having an online presence is also extremely important, especially nowadays. And even, you know, you don't need to have a website. I have one, and I have to, I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I haven't even been on my own website probably in 6 months. But, you know, being on LinkedIn and being on Twitter, and just, you know, if you read an article or something, or have an interesting tidbit of information, to tweet it out there and get your name out there and information out there. And LinkedIn is fantastic to connect with people. That's a great way. That's how I got my first subcontracting job, was through LinkedIn. So I think, you know, in addition to everything that Kim said, I think also having a strong online presence is also extremely beneficial for marketing and getting your name out there.
Okay, our next question is, I am a nurse analyst with the Attorney General Medicaid Fraud Control Unit. I've been working for the past 4 years in this field. I plan on taking the LNC course with AA-LNC, but do I have to wait until being certified to be considered a legal nurse consultant?
I can answer that also. Oh.
I think we all want to answer that
I've been in LNC for 9 years, and I am not certified, but I plan to do it in October. So the short answer to that is no, but I would strongly encourage you to get certified. I myself am going to do that and will be certified by the end of this year.
I also think that I want to add, you know, do your homework before you start signing up and paying for certificates. You know, there's only one board certification for legal nurse consulting, and that's through our the American Association of Legal Nurse Consultants Certification Board. That's board certification, just like if you were board certified in orthopedic nursing or oncology nursing, you're board certified in legal nursing. Any other place that is marketing certification, it is a certificate of completion, which there are a lot of really good courses out there, but don't get it confused with being certified. And I always tell nurses this too, don't get caught up in being certified. Yes, it is a gold standard that you should strive for, just like in any of your other clinical capacities, you should, you know, strive for that. But there are many nurses that are working as legal nurse consultants that are not certified, and I think that there's a huge disservice when there's all of this talk about certificates and certification. We want you to be your best, you know, be your professional best. And so being your professional best means educating yourself on what you're doing and really working to the best capacity that you can, and don't get caught up with pieces of paper. I feel like being a board certified legal nurse does show that you have the knowledge base, because you have to have 2,000 hours of experience, and you have to have experience before you're certified. You don't just take a course and get certified. So it does stand for something. It shows that you are knowledgeable, but along with those credentials, you just want to always be keeping up your knowledge either by constantly learning through webinars, constantly reading journal articles, attending seminars, attending our forum, networking with other people. That's how you're going to be the best that you can for your attorney.
Great. Related to that question, the next question is how can I gain the legal experience that I need in order to sit for the exam?
Subcontracting with other legal nurse consultants is a really good way to get the experience, but also learn other experienced legal nurse consultants' way of creating work products and start billing and those kind of things. I think that's a good place to start. How do you get to that point? Well, you network. You get out there. You attend functions where there's other legal nurse consultants that are looking for subcontractors. Quite honestly, I would be, very likely to hire someone who I could carry on a reasonable conversation with and felt like they were go-getters and, would work through it versus someone who just calls me and says, yeah, I just want a job working legal nurse consulting and I'm going to quit my clinical work tomorrow. Just like any other job, it takes work to get there, and it takes hard work. And, you learn new things every day. And I personally sit in that chair. I will never know everything. And quite honestly, with every case that I do, I learn something new. Mm-hmm. So that's a good way of starting as far as working independently.
This is Cindy. I would just like to add to that, sometimes interning, or if you can pair up with somebody who is working in a firm or in a hospital or doing risk management, doing something that you can go in and doing some intern, that will also give you some background experience to give you an idea of what kind of things go on and what kind of things you need to know and maybe even start networking some in that aspect as well. It's we've had a number of them come through here, even if it's just for a month, on the hours that they can, just to see what it's like and to get some basics of what goes on in a firm.
Okay, great. Someone asked a follow-up to the last question, which is, could you define what a subcontractor for an LNC is?
I can take that
Sure.
one. So basically, I work for several different nurses who have their own business. They get work from attorneys and then contact me to see if I'm available to do the work. And actually, both of the nurses that I work for currently also work on cases. They just have more work than they can handle themselves. And so then they, contact me, say, hey, do you have time to do this case? We need it in whatever the time frame is, 2 weeks. Are you available to work on this? And then I say yes, and they send me the case. And so that's basically how it works. You're doing LNC work for an LNC who has attorney clients. So I do not currently have any of my own attorney clients. My clients are other legal nurse consultants. I help them with their cases. So hopefully that answered your question.
Great. Our next question is, how many cases are you generally working on at a time?
I think that depends on what type of work you're doing. I don't want to overwhelm anybody, but I work in product liability, and we have thousands of cases. And my attorneys ask me about any number of cases on a daily basis. So it's a little bit different when you're doing reviews for product liability versus a medical malpractice case. Some of our product liability cases, when they go to trial, they very much are like having a malpractice case, because you have to do a deep dive into records going back as far as you can to know everything about it, because the other side knows way more about your client than you do. So I think, you know, for me, it literally is over 1,000 cases I have active at one time. I don't know, Cindy, if you can talk to your experience,
Sure.
How many you manage at any one time, or anybody on the independent side, because I think that's really just individual on the type of work you do.
Right. This is Cindy, and working in a defense firm, I can say that. I mean, actually, I just went through this because we hired a part-time nurse about a month ago, which I'm incredibly grateful for. I myself, in the cases that we have here, had close to 150. So we now have a person who has come in, and she has taken 25 of those to at least start with, and we'll build her up. But yes, they are, and I have a number that are not active. You know, that maybe we've got something going on, or the plaintiff's attorney has backed out and they're getting a new plaintiff's attorney, so that gets put on hold. So yeah, so on this end, we don't have 1,000, but yeah, we probably have 150 to 200 at any given time.
And this is
So
Erin.
I'll answer that.
Oh.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Erin.
Oh, thanks, Kim. It depends. The work kind of ebbs and flows for independent, at least for me. So, and I also work clinically, PRN. So I can basically take cases, you know, based on my time and how much time I have to work on them. And the nurse that I do the criminal work for usually gives the attorney an estimate on the time that it's going to take to complete a case. And so she'll tell me, hey, we estimated that this is going to take you between 6 and 8 hours, or whatever the case may be. And then I kind of fit that into my schedule. I have 4 cases right now that I'm working on. 3 of them are criminal, and 1 of them is personal injury. And so, and they're all due within the next 14 to 16 days. And so I had plenty of time to be able to work on the 4 of them, because school is going to be out, so I don't have any school time. But so as far as independent goes, you know, you can kind of figure out what you're able to do during the day, how many hours you have to put towards your work, and kind of work it out that way. And it also depends on how much work you have coming in too. So it really is an individual, you know, depending on what's going on. I can say, though, that I did work in-house for 1 year, which I apologize, I failed to mention that earlier. I worked in-house for 1 year at a medical malpractice plaintiff firm, and by the time I left there, I had 90 cases on my caseload, and there were four of us working on cases, and that was just mine. So, and I'm not saying that to overwhelm anybody, because it was the same thing that, you know, I think it was Cindy had mentioned that they're not always all active, but there might be something that you got to keep it on your caseload. There may be something that comes down the road. So it's not, at least in my situation, it wasn't that I was actively working on all 90 of those. But I would say definitely more than half of them I was as an in-house.
Okay, great. Our next question is, what is a fair fee range to expect an attorney-client to pay for services of a new LNC?
So this is Kim. I'll stab at that. you know, we get this question often as DALs from people interested in finding out how much they should charge. The best answer is really to try and do your market research. And I'll be very honest, you can go online and actually Google it. There are people that put their fee schedule online. I would just, you know, as you're networking and talking to other people who are legal nurse consultants, you know, I think every region is very different. I will say how I started doing it, I really didn't have an idea, but I knew about how much I felt like it was fair for me to charge. And the first client that I had called me, I sent him my fee schedule and offered to do the first case at a 20% discount. And if he was not happy with the work, that was fine, and I would do whatever he needed me to do to help with that. And he's been my client for many years. So I think that instead of just going out and saying, this is how much I charge, it's fair to, in order to get yourself started, to have some plan of action of how you would do that in a discussion with an attorney who looks at your fee schedule and says, well, gosh, you know, you've never done this before. Prove it to them and offer a discount. And most of the time, if you do good work, the work will come back to you.
Okay, great. Our next question is, what program do I need to take to get started?
You know, I don't think that there's a specific program that we're going to sit and endorse as far as what you need. I think everybody comes at this from a very different angle. We have clinical knowledge, but personally for me, I needed to understand what legal nurses could do, what it was supposed to look like, and have just a basic foundation to be able to even have a conversation with an attorney. I also needed to kind of work through the business piece, which is still something that I work through every day. It's probably been the hardest part of going from the bedside to business. There's just so many different components to look for, to learn to market, to actually doing the work, to make sure you're doing the work like you want it done, different ways to better the work that you do. It's really been the business piece. So there's a lot of different options as far as that go. There's SCORE, there's a Small Business Association. But as far as legal nurse consulting courses go, you know, I really think that's really the beauty of our organization is we have pretty much a menu of items. So instead of going and purchasing, you know, the whole entire program, you might not need that. And that might be cumbersome for you, and it might not be financially possible. So I think the neat part is that you can actually go to the bookstore or the webinars or the online modules and find things that would be good for you to start. And there are a couple different modules that are used or, you know, bought frequently by our members and non-members. And one of them is the Legal Fundamentals. And there's another module called Introduction to Legal Nurse Consulting. And I would venture to say that those two are probably the place where most people start. But again, I think it's specific to where you come from, and that's what's neat about our education program is that you can kind of pick through what applies to you at that time.
I think if you can, Sam, are you able to put up any where they can locate modules at on AALNC as well?
Sure.
You know, there are the few main modules that a lot of people do use. Did you just mention those, Kim?
Yes, I did.
And so this is exactly where you'll find them at. She'll show you here on the website I think that's a good place to start. Start reading the journal and look at some modules. And before you take anybody's course, just make sure you do your homework to see what they offer, and if they have, people that, will give some kind of a recommendation for their course.
Yep, so the modules specifically that Kim and Debbie are referencing are on the website, aalnc.org. If you go to LNC Professional Course, that's our main course, and scroll down and select Course Packages and Modules, you'll see these are the all 17 module options down here. And then if you scroll further, you have the individual modules. So this is Introduction to Legal Nurse Consulting, one of the better modules to start with, and then this is Legal Fundamentals, the other module that a lot of people get started with when they start the course. And moving on, our next question is there a chapter in Georgia? Which, if you go
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. This is Erin. There is not currently a chapter in Georgia. However, I understand that the chapter that was in Georgia was pretty active, from what I understand, and I know that there are active LNCs in Georgia. So I would recommend reaching out to them. And I know that we have the LNC locator on the website. And is that, Sam, is that a members only list? I don't remember.
Nope, the LNC locator is accessible to anyone on the website.
Oh, perfect.
So you can use it. It's under About Us, Related Links, LNC locator, and you can type in, click here, and then you can type in your zip code, and any member who has opted in, you can find them, their contact information, and reach out to them.
Perfect. And I also would like to add that Georgia is one of the states that I am the contact person for, the director at large. So, if you have any questions, obviously, please feel free to reach out to me. But do check out the LNC locator. You can look for LNCs in your area. I know that at least around the Atlanta area, there were quite a few. But certainly, I would say that would be the best resources to get on there and reach out to those LNCs and network with them. We do also have a virtual chapter too that you can check out, and they are also on the website, which Sam is showing you right now. They're the West Virginia Upper Ohio Valley chapter. There are nurses that are members of that chapter, myself included, that are all over the country.
Yep, so this, if you're looking for a chapter, we do have 11 local chapters. So you do have the opportunity to join one if you want. They're under About Us chapters on our website. And as Erin mentioned, we have the 11, and then we have West Virginia, which is virtual. So anyone from any location is able to join that chapter. And I think it's about time almost for our last question.
Sam, can we take the question about the informatics nurse specialist? Because I think that's sort of important. I'll go ahead and read it if that's okay with you.
Sure, go ahead.
It says, I am an informatics nurse specialist working with hospitals with old and new technology and have been away from the bedside for 15 years. Would there be opportunities working with the EHR, the electronic health record, or other technology as an LNC? I feel like those that are working clinically right now and are so involved in the electronic health record have a very great advantage over even people like us who have not been working in-house, who have been working or who have not been working clinically, because you're way more familiar with certain electronic health record systems. I myself am presently taking classes to get my bachelor's degree as health informatics, my bachelor's in health informatics. So I am learning about it, and the reason I'm learning about it is because so many attorneys do not understand, both from a plaintiff and a defense end, how critical it is to understand how to go and find information in a record review, in an audit trail, and that the copy of the record that they're getting, even though it's a copy of an electronic health record, it's a paper copy that's basically scanned in. You're not getting the full benefit of what an electronic health record offers information-wise. So if you are working as an informatics nurse specialist, you got to really create a great business for yourself by offering to do electronic health reviews for attorneys who are doing really med-mal particularly, but almost any area, but really a great need in med-mal. So I think that's something that you could segue into pretty easily.
Okay, great. We can take a couple more questions. So one of our questions is, do you have any recommendations on locating pertinent CEU courses or webinars that are outside of AA-LNC?
This is Cindy. I can tell you that there are a number of places that you can do that. One of the things that I learned getting into this is when you can go into different organizations like the and maybe I'm just coming at it from a medical standpoint. In terms of a legal standpoint, or for legal nurse consulting, you know, that's a little bit different. But in terms of medical CEs, stuff like that, if you join the organizations like the American College of Cardiology, you can tap into them, not joining it, paying their fees, but you can tap into it in terms of getting information about courses that they offer. Your local hospitals will often have stuff that they offer in terms of sometimes you can get it on the electronic records. You can get it on maybe a grand rounds that they're offering. Oftentimes these are very reasonably priced, maybe $30, $40, but the universities will also do that. So there's the risk management area. I think it's ASHRM, ASHRM. They offer CEs, which will often go into more than just something medical, but it will also go into something legal in terms of risk management. So there's a lot of places out there to get those.
Okay. Our next question, and probably the final question that we'll address before we provide some further information about the organization, is what in general are some pearls of knowledge that you would share that you wish that you had known when you were starting in this field?
This is Debbie. For me, when I first got started, I did take one of the for-profit courses that offered a certificate, and it made it sound like it was going to be really easy to, you know, get my instructions and start working as a legal nurse consultant. And it's not that easy. And think about it, is anything that easy that you've ever done? It does take work. You've got to get yourself established. You've got to network yourself. You're not going to just start getting jobs because somebody gave you a piece of paper that you finished their course and you sent them your CV and a writing sample. It just doesn't happen. For me, it took me to join, to network, start networking with attorneys, but also to start networking with other LNCs. If you have the opportunity to have a local chapter in your area, you should join. I credit my success to this association. Even though I've worked incredibly hard on my own to get where I'm at, I also have surrounded myself with a lot of really smart legal nurses who I can tap into and ask questions, and I offer them the same back. I share my experience and my expertise with my colleagues, and they share with me, and it's made me a better professional. And those nurses that, if you can find them in your area, somehow, go meet them and start, learning about what they do. It's not competition. If we are all very good at what we're doing, you're not going to lose your job, but we can all make each other better professionals by sharing our knowledge. So join the AALNC, start networking. If you can find a listserv, there is a listserv that we belong to. A lot of us, if you email any of us, we can give you the contact information for that. It's a way to network with people that are out there exchanging ideas about cases and so on. I've picked up cases through there independently, but really get involved with your association. There's no better way to make yourself more educated about this area of nursing, and there's no better way to network than with people that are successful. So that, to me, is probably going to be your biggest advantage.
This is Erin. I completely agree with 100% with everything that Debbie has said. I also want to add that I wish that someone had told me not to spend a lot of money on marketing because it was a huge waste of money for me personally. And also, definitely get business cards. Do absolutely do that and carry them with you everywhere. There is nothing worse than meeting somebody out when you're not even planning to meet somebody that has anything to do with legal nurse consulting, and you stumble upon someone and you go, oh, I don't have my business cards with me. Yeah, just carry a couple with you all the time, because you never know when you're going to strike up a conversation with someone and it leads you to work or it leads you to another potential client. So I would definitely spend the money on the business cards for sure. But I think that the networking and building relationships will get you so much more than spending the money for a big website or pamphlets. I don't know if anybody uses pamphlets anymore. I'm dating myself, but yeah, so those are the things that I wish, if I could go back, that I would have definitely done or not done.
Well, this is Kim. I'll add one other thing. I've found myself in situations where I've gotten sporadic phone calls. Even though I thought I was prepared to answer those questions, I was very quick to tell the paralegal or office manager who was calling me that I was not qualified for that job. So looking back, if I found myself in a position like that again, where I got a phone call from an unknown potential client, I would probably gather their information and call them back at another time where I could research who the attorney was or who was calling me, what kind of law they practice, look them up in Martindale Hubbard's and, just kind of get a background of what they do in order to prepare myself to better have a conversation about them and what questions to ask, so I can find out what their needs are. Because I look at all my clients as very, very different clients. So I don't always want to present my clients with a cookie cutter product. They all have different needs and they all like to see things differently. So I do always offer a personalized, customized product just for them. Most of the time, they just want me to do the work. That's not a big issue, but I do try and always follow up on my work and see if there was something I could do differently. Could I do it better? And again, I think that goes back to relationships, and the first impression is important. So that's my 2 cents of that.
Okay, great. So that's the end of our question and answer portion of this. Now we're going to briefly go through some of the information about our association. So Kim, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Sure. Well, this first slide that you see here is the main web page of our online resource. It provides you with a lot of information. There's a lot of information in this web page, in this website. I do encourage you to kind of take your time to go through it. A lot of the questions that are routinely asked can be found within this website. And we do try to make it very user-friendly, but again, there is a lot of information. So we talked about finding legal nurse consultants in your area. You can see that in the middle there. It says Find LNC. It's got a little magnifying glass. You can click on that and find consultants in a certain area, whether you're living there, you want to find people in your local area, or you just want to talk to a legal nurse consultant. You will find that all the legal nurse consultants listed there, if you're an LNCC, you go to the top of the list. So there are lots of great resources, and I think mostly people are very happy to help. So I would encourage you to reach out to people and, you know, see what kind of information you can find. There's also the key to become a legal nurse consultant, and that's for the people that are newer and want newer information on getting started. And there's also the icon for already an LNC. So I think those three pieces have been blocked off nicely so that you can easily get through there. Of course, all of them offer a lot of information, and I would really encourage you to spend some time on the website. So as far as becoming a member with AALNC, we do have many member benefits. As we mentioned earlier, the Journal of Legal Nurse Consulting is a free online subscription. This is downloadable for anyone. And as Debbie mentioned, it's a great marketing tool. I refer back to them very often, and I read them often, and I always learn something new. So I would highly encourage you to get in there and find articles that are educational for you. And, you know, maybe when you start looking and talking to people and getting to know people, find an article that might be, you know, a good tool to start conversation with another attorney or nurse or paralegal. When you become a member, you do get put on the LNC locator, which we talked about just a minute ago on the previous slide. Access to national network of your colleagues, and again, that's you know, access to legal nurse consultants that are also in the organization, and then member-only rates on key professional development resources, and those could be things like NSO subscriptions, or I think there was a subscription on there for a grammar website that you could download and use. So there are different resources that are available that are members only rates. And then again, this is showing you the link to the three different components of education. One is the webinars, the other is the Legal Nurse Consulting Professional course, and the online bookstore. The online bookstore is the only place where you're going to find the actual paper products. But if you're looking for the textbook, which is one of those things that answers a lot of questions that were asked today, it does provide some sample templates for chronologies. I believe there's even a sample billing work product in there. And it gives you those kind of things for different cases, whether it be medical malpractice or a personal injury case. So there are some good templates in there. Quite honestly, the textbook provides a lot of information. There are a lot of organizations across the nation that are using our textbook to teach their programs, which again points out that it is a all-inclusive textbook that provides a lot of good information. So quite honestly, if you're going to buy one product or one tool that you want to use, it is these textbooks. And prior to this call today, I opened it and just thumbed through a couple things. And quite honestly, there's been many times I've worked on a case and months later I opened the textbook for something and the one piece that I was struggling with was right above my head on my bookshelf. So I open them more and more often lately because I don't want to miss anything. And there's always kind of another perspective or something that I haven't thought of. So this is the textbooks are great tools. And I would recommend, if you're seriously interested in getting started in legal nurse consulting, that you purchase the textbook. Some people read through the textbook. I'm not a reader that way, so I like to do it in bits and pieces when it's necessary, and it correlates with what my work product is. And as we mentioned, there's the on-demand webinars. These webinars you do get contact hours for. There are a lot of topics, and they're case-specific, topic-specific. So again, that goes back to the idea that you might not need an entire learning module. You can pick and choose what works for you. And these are things that even seasoned legal nurse consultants spend time listening to. It's a lot of great information. I continuously purchase these and I follow through and listen to them and make notes. So I do encourage you to take some time and look at the on-demand webinars, see what's coming up, see what we've recorded in the past, and you can do those at your own pace, which is nice. And this next slide is just an image of our Legal Nurse Consulting Journal that comes out 4 times a year. The current ones are topic specific, and each edition that comes out is a different topic. And you won't find that necessarily in some of the older journals, but you will find a nice table of contents of all the content inside the Legal Nurse Consulting Journal. In some of the older ones, there are nice pages that were made that are reference pages to that topic. And just another example of something I did when I first started was every journal I would photocopy that. And I would keep those in a notebook because they were resources that I could use or that could jolt my memory of some place that I could go to gather information on the web. And chapter information, we went through how to find the chapter links on the AALNC webpage. You can, again, locate them by going to the AALNC chapters and clicking on that and scrolling down. It'll show you all the chapters that are currently active across the United States. Again, I would encourage you also to stay abreast to what the upcoming educational programs are on the AALNC calendar. A lot of education has changed kind of into these webinar type base, and that's happening nationally across the board. So I do, although, looking at the chapter and seeing if there's anything local, which cannot be online, don't get me wrong, it's a great place to meet people and network. But again, the webinar calendar is also good to look at. And you can go to the actual chapters, and if they're not in the state that you're in, it's okay. You can actually still become a member of their local chapter. And some of them are web-based, and you can go on there and join their educational programs. And the annual AALNC Forum is going to be Friday, April 5th and 6th, with a pre-forum the day before on April 4th. So save the date for our upcoming forum, which will be in Louisville, Kentucky. We'd love to see you there. It really is a great place to go and network. I'm honestly never had work until I joined AALNC, and I started going to the conferences, meeting people, subcontracting, stepping into positions when I was asked to volunteer my time. And it's really a great way to meet people. It's a great way to get work. And it's a great way just to get out there and learn different things, find out what other people are doing, what's going on across the country. We really do hope to see you at the forum. It's a great tool, and we, really embrace our first-time attendees and make sure you have a good time as well. So this last slide shows you our contact information. You're more than welcome to email any of us specifically for a specific question, and you can always email info@AALNC to ask any general question as well. Headquarters will forward those on to the appropriate person if they don't have the answer for them.
Yep, so this is our last slide. Thank you everyone for attending. As Kim said, if you had a very specific question that you submitted that didn't get answered, you can go ahead and send those to info@aalnc.org or to an individual person here that you think would be helpful in providing you more information about your question. That's going to conclude our webinar presentation for today. Thank you everyone for attending, and have a great rest of your day.